As per usual for my videos, I give a disclaimer. I live in a home in which I film in an open space. There's a lot of traffic in my home. I live with 2 dogs, 3 cats, 1 lizard, and 2 other human beings. They are bound to be background noises.
I close my eyes, embrace the blast. Sleepless nights and headaches stack. Restlessness to hell and back.
Alright, hello. Today is my December wrap-up, which comes with a game that I kind of created because I don't like that people who make TBRs get all the fun and can have TBR games, so I made a wrap-up game. I did change a few things from the last one that I did, which was my November wrap-up. So before I go into what I actually read in December, I am going to show you the board and kind of explain it, and then just kind of pin this as like a refer back to this video for information on the game. So let's do that real quick. Okay, so here is the board, and just kind of gonna run you through it one by one. The board is based off of one of my favorite series, which is the Underland Chronicles, and so I created this myself. It's pretty simple. It's not the best looking, but you know, you get what you get. So you start off at the vent, right? So I'm gonna be restarting the game for this month's wrap up. So you start at the vent and you just kind of follow the, you know, the clean straight lines, and there are empty spaces, and then there are some spaces with names on them that I tried making custom and cute. And some of the names will have different kind of challenges. So these would be the different challenges. I wrote them all by hand. It's not the prettiest, but you can pause to see what they are. They're pretty simple. And again, when I land on them, I'll usually, you know, explain it a little bit. Then the other thing is that some spaces, when you land on them, they'll have these squiggly lines, and the squiggly lines mean that I have to go back. There's no way for me to avoid it. They just throw me back. And obviously if I land on this one with the challenge, the dotted line is where I can skip to if I complete the challenge. Then I have like some other ones that are like this. It has a -2, and I literally had to write there in pencil so I didn't forget, but it means that I'm stuck here for 2 turns. Or then there's just this one, which it's just a freebie. I get to skip 2 turns, so I just get to go there. There's no challenge associated to this one. And that's kind of it. And the goal of this is that once I get through everything and I get to the end, then I can just, you know, get a prize. Or really, it's just an excuse for me to be able to buy maybe a more expensive purchase that I've been putting off. So maybe like a special edition book or several books, I don't know. The other thing that I did add is that you see all these empty spaces? I landed in them quite often, and I wanted to think of something that was kind of associated with the Underland stuff, and it's that there are prophecies in it, and I thought it'd be funny if I did something kind of like that, sort of, not really, but if I land on an open space, what happens is I have to pull out of this little stack here, which are kind of like extra challenges / questions that I have to answer, and that's it. It just adds fun to it. I don't really want to show too many of them, but like, for example, the first one here, it says, you know, you have to do a Love, Death, Robots for the last book that I rated, and that's it. Like, I don't have to do it well or poorly, it doesn't matter. Yeah, that's it for the board. I think I explained everything. If I missed something, I'm so sorry. If you come up with any like ideas for this, then feel free to put them in the comments, because you know, interaction, it's great. If you have any questions, also, you know, ask. I just realized too, I haven't grabbed any of the books that I read or didn't read. So let me do that real quick. I'm so organized. Can you not tell? Can you not tell how organized I am? So let's get into it. Into what I read in December. So the first one, I do not own the physical copy at all. I'm pretty sure I borrowed it from the library. I think it was purely the audiobook that I borrowed. Anyways, it was Ready Player One, which is a very popular book. A lot of people know it, especially because the movie had come out, and I watched the movie a while ago, and I thought it was an okay movie. Like, it was, you know, it was a dystopian with kids who are in this game world and they're trying to complete the puzzle and win the big prize, right? So I was like, it's kind of cool. It had your typical gamer elements to it with like a race and different things to fight and whatever. So when I picked up the book, I was like, it'll probably be kind of the same. This was a book chosen by a book club, so on my own, I probably would not have picked this book up, But because my book club picked it, I was like, all right, let's do it. You know, it's so popular, so I might as well. I thought it was a good book. I can see why it's such a popular book. It is written in a way that is very easy to digest. It follows a character that you can kind of connect with. The thing is, I don't know if it's a young adult book. I don't think it is. I didn't see that it was written as young adult, but it very much did have kind of a tone for that. So yeah, I mean, again, the story is just a dystopia. This kid who's kind of miserable and lives his life in a video game. It definitely has that messaging of where reality and fantasy escapism, the lines become blurred and it can become dangerous, especially with how the character, you know, like it was quite honest with, he's physically very unfit and it's not healthy. He's not healthy, but he's also a kid. Now, there were a few things that I couldn't quite believe, like where did the kid get his money from, you know, and some elements of the video game too I couldn't quite grasp or understand or see how it was viable. And also because the future that's depicted is not one that's really that far. So some people could say like, oh, it's such a, not a jab, but it's such a reflection of our world today, especially with VR becoming a thing. So anyways, I get the popularity of it, but I think I gave it 3.75 stars. It was enjoyable, but it was nothing mind-blowing in my opinion. And also, the amount of references that were in this book, like I get that the whole thing was about the creator living in the 80s and loving the 80s, and that his quest to all his money and owning the game and essentially becoming a god is that you had to know his references. But my goodness, there were a lot. I was like, do I have to know this stuff? Because I couldn't, sometimes I was like, I don't get it, but okay. It was enjoyable, nothing amazing. I'm probably not gonna pick up the second book. Someone in the book club did start picking it up and she said, you might not want to. All right, so we're at the vent, the beginning, because I'm starting over. And we're gonna move up 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So I did land on the waterway, but there is nothing actually there. Like it's only if I land here would I be brought back here. So I'm safe in the waterway. Next book. Oh yeah, oh boy. All right, The X-Hex by Aaron Sterling. I got this in a Book of the Month box, obviously, because oh no, it's over there. And, you know, I picked it up because it sounded like a kind of romance that I could potentially enjoy because it has witches and magic and small town and something about not mixing vodka with spells and magic. And I thought it was funny. I was like, well, I'll probably enjoy this. I did not enjoy this. I didn't enjoy this very much. I only gave this book, I think, 2.25 stars. The only thing that really worked for me was probably the humor. Sometimes the humor wasn't exactly the best. But really what bothered me was the fact that the main character, I don't even remember her fucking name, Vivian, I think? Yeah, Vivian, and they called her Vivi or Vivi. I don't know how to fucking say that. Point is, I didn't like her at all. I couldn't even tell you exactly why I didn't like her. But I think for me, it's the fact that there was this huge fucking drama over a guy that she was with for like 3 months, I think. And it's funny because there are times when she's just like, well, it was only 3 months. I'm like, yeah, it was only 3 months. Get over it. Oh my gosh. So, okay, the premise is, it starts off with this girl who's like, well, I met this really handsome Welsh man when it was some kind of festival and she was young and she was in college. And they were together for like 3 months. And she found out that he's a witch and she already knew that. She found out that his family line, they're very noble, I guess. They're, I don't know, prestigious, magical family. And he was betrothed to another witch because, I don't know, purity of line, some bullshit noble stuff that doesn't happen anymore. She got mad at him for not telling her that he was betrothed, but he literally told her, like when he told her he was betrothed, he was telling her, I need to call it off, like I need to end it because I didn't want it anyways. Like, I don't know, it was a whole thing where I'm like, the dude didn't want to be betrothed. I'm sorry he didn't tell you he was betrothed, but you knew him for 3 months. And the guy didn't like his dad in the first place. Like, what? I don't know, just so much drama, blown out of proportion. And then the curse that she puts on him, in my opinion, it was not really that interesting because it ends up being a curse that doesn't really work and that ends up affecting other people, and I didn't understand. I'm like, she clearly cursed him, and I get that the wording can be important to the details, but still, I don't know. There were just so many things that I didn't get, and then like the little accidents that they came across, I was like, that's so stupid. Like the cat starts talking and just saying that he wants treats. I'm like, I don't know. It was not as enjoyable as I thought it'd be. I didn't enjoy the smutty parts either. I was like, that's bland. Whatever. I felt bad for the guy. What was even the guy's name? Can you tell that I didn't really like this book because I can't even remember their names? Oh, the guy's name was Reese. I pronounced it Reese because I don't know how to pronounce it. It's the RHYS name, and I feel like that's a name that's in like the Court of Thorns and Roses thing because I see it all the time, and I think that you say it Reese. All right. So we're at the waterway. 1, 2. Photos Glow Glow. All right, I forgot what this one is. I don't think I've landed on it at all. Okay, so I have this deck of cards here that I've been using. They're Cthulhu cards. Ooh, I kind of like this backdrop. Maybe I'll do more videos like this because then I just have the natural light coming from that window. All right, so I'm gonna pull 3 cards and then I'm gonna try and guess which ones they are. So I have my 3 cards that I pulled. I'm gonna guess that at least one of these, I'm gonna make 3 guesses. I'm gonna say, fuck, what am I gonna say? Oh, you know what? I'm gonna say 4 of Wands because I get 4 of Wands quite often. I'm also gonna say Ace of Cups and the Tower card. Okay, so 4 of Wands, Ace of Cups, Tower. Well, that's Death. Okay. That's not the right one. So, Death. Nope. Oh, God. 2 of Swords. What the fuck? I have no luck. Come on. The Hanged Man. Really? Really? Okay. All right, so because I wasn't able to guess for Photos Glow Glow, I will not be able to skip to here. Mind you, the skip for Photos Glow Glow is a lot. Like, I skip all of this, and I go here. So, yeah. That's why it's a tough one. All right, the next book that I read was none other than the final book in the Underland Chronicles, which is Gregor and the Code of Claw. This is the 5th book in the series, and the emotions experienced by this. If you have not watched my video where I say that you have to read the Underland Chronicles, please go do that. Do yourself a favor and read these books because, oh my gosh, it's just, It is the 5th book, so there isn't very much that I can say, but the Underland Chronicles are about a boy named Gregor who falls into a laundry room vent with his baby sister Boots, who's 2 years old, and they get involved in a bunch of different things that are happening in the Underland, where there are humans, but there are also giant critters like giant rats, giant cockroaches, giant bats, and there are wars happening in the Underland. And there are also prophecies that say that Gregor is some kind of warrior who's going to help them. So in the 3rd book, it's kind of this big accumulation of resentment between rats and humans. Those are like the big foes. And there's a war going on. The amount of loss that is experienced in this book is heart-wrenching. And the ending for it, if you don't like endings that are, you know, a little more open, that aren't necessarily very happy, then maybe you won't love this ending. But after everything Gregor has been through in all the other books, it's the only possible ending to give. Because, like, how is he ever going to recover from the trauma that he experienced? And mind you, like, these are middle grade books. Gregor's only like 11 or 12 in these books. It's insane. So yes, this was a flying 5-star read. Absolutely loved it. Am still emotionally scarred by this, even like, how old am I now? Like 18 years later in my life, I am still recovering from my experience of reading these books. 5 stars means 5 spaces, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, look at that! We landed on an empty space, so I get to do this for the first time. Let's see what this will be. Okay, so the last book that I rated was obviously Gregor and the Code of Claw. And now I have to find a I have to find a song to compare it to. Okay, so I think I'm going to compare it to a song called Welcome Home by Bless the Fall. Now, the song in itself is very different in the theme that it's giving. The singer is talking about like when he's on tour and how he misses his wife, and when he comes home and she waits for him. It's a kind of a sad but also nice song. And obviously, like, Gregor in the Code of Claw is not about a guy going on tour, but the lyrics sometimes reflect the like emotion that is experienced. Like, Gregor wants to go home, and so do the Underlanders. They want their home back. And just some of the music notes and the I don't fucking know how to call it, but the instrumental parts of that song also have an emotional impact on me that definitely reflects the emotional impact that I had reading this book. So I'm gonna compare it to that song. Have a listen to it. It's a great song. What's next? Oh yes, okay, next book. This was one of my 5-star predictions for 2022, which I finally got to in fucking December. But it was The Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wong, I think is the author's name. I hope I'm right. And unfortunately, it wasn't a full 5 stars, but I did give it 4.25. Now, Sword of Kaigen, I would describe as, it is an epic fantasy with a high fantasy world, but the fantasy elements are secondary to the story. Definitely, like, you could take away all the fantasy elements and you could still kind of have the same story. Sword of Kaigen is about a mother and her son, Mamoru. The mother's name is Misaki, I think. And so Misaki has a past that she hasn't really shared with anyone, but she kind of had to sacrifice all those things in her past because her culture demands that she marry. And so she did that, and she has 4 boys, which is fucking like, wow, hit the jackpot. All boys, no girls. Nice job, Misaki. And her oldest son, Mamoru, he is training to be like his father. And now the fantasy element that comes in here is that his father and his father's bloodline, they are almost compared to as gods because the power that they can access it's massive. And basically what it is that they use ice or water. They can turn water into ice, or they can form they live in like mountains where it's very snowy. At least that's what I pictured it as. But they have this technique called the something sword. I think it's like a sword made of ice, but it's like unbeatable or something. And Mamoru is training to be like that, but unfortunately, where they live on the Sword of Kaigen, because it's the place, they've kind of, I wouldn't want to say brainwashed, but their government is not very open with them. And so they've just been told that like they are these grand warriors that protect the rest of their continent from invaders. They are the Sword of Kaigen. They are the front line. But you can tell that there are a lot of deceptions, that there are a lot of things that are not being shared with the people, and the people just kind of accept it because they're like, well, I trust my government, right? It's that blissful ignorance. And, well, there are enemies coming. And that's it, really. That's all I'm going to say because I don't want to give too much away. But in my opinion, The Sword of Kaigen was very much a story about motherhood and relationships. I don't even know how to say it, but the sadness that I felt sometimes, especially for Misaki, like I couldn't connect with her. I'm not a mother. I didn't grow up in that culture. And honestly, there were times when I was like, what the fuck? Like, why did she do that? Why did she marry? But in hindsight, you're like, well, it's a culture. It's what they do. To them, it's normal. You do it to please your family because you don't displease your family. It's just not an option. So I felt so sad for Misaki and Mamoru too. Like, that kid, hot damn. But really too, the marriage was just it's so sad. And the fact that it took that long for there to be any kind of communication, it's almost unrealistic. But then when you think about it, some people go their entire lives, their entire marriages, not being understood by their partner. For me, that's unfathomable. I cannot do that. I talk, I communicate, and you better fucking communicate back with me, otherwise I'm done. I think that maybe the reason that this book wasn't a full 5 stars is because it did drag at times, and I did feel like there was a lot of repetition sometimes that I didn't really need. And also, I don't know, there were some characters that I felt like were kind of in there and then weren't really as important as I thought they were going to be. But ultimately, reading that book made me curious about M.L. Wong's series, because so The Sword of Kaigen is a war story in the Theonite universe that I guess she created, or he created. I don't know if M.L. Wong is a guy or a girl, but I don't know if it's if it's an incomplete series, because at the end of The Sword of Kaigen, there was a note saying that the author is discontinuing the series. So I know that there are at least 2 books in the Theonite world, and I also know they read more young adults. So I'm not sure. I'm interested in reading them just because of the magical elements that was in Sword of Kaigen. But who knows? All right, so empty space. When we move up 4, because I only gave it 4.25, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Another empty space. Let's see what I have to do now. Oh my gosh, I'm actually a little worried. I was hoping that with that little prompt thing, I could do like funny things, but Sword of Kaigen is such a sad, depressing book. What in the fuck am I gonna act out? I see you have come to challenge me. I'm glad you received my letter. I will not fight my wife. Too bad, you're gonna fight me anyways. Wow, the way that I swiftly took this sword out. All right, that was god awful, but I hope you enjoyed that. I had tried to take out a scene that I could remember kind of, but that was rough. All right, moving on. The next book that I read it was very short, and I got it at because I work at an elementary school, it was a book fair, and the book is Knights vs. Dinosaurs. I only gave this 3 stars because it was fun and it was entertaining, and honestly the illustrations really just played a big part. I really did like how at one point I was reading and it went from, reading in a book format to it being like a comic book. Here it is. Okay, so it goes from you're reading like this, right? And then the picture starts, and then in the next pages, it's a comic book. So I really did enjoy the format. I enjoyed the interactivity between pictures and text. Ultimately, like, the characters were pretty cliche and pretty funny, but there wasn't anything like great about them. There wasn't anything great about the adventure that they went on either. It was just humorous and overall kind of average, but still a good time. So it's a 3. I don't know if you guys really want to know very much about it because it's very short and I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but basically it's knights who were being a little too boastful about how they slay dragons, even though dragons don't even exist. No one has ever slain a dragon, but they come to the round table to say, oh, I slew this dragon. And Merlin plays a prank on them and makes them go back in time, basically. All right, 3 stars means 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3. Oh my gosh, another empty space. I'm gonna need more of these random prompts. All right, so this prompt was born from a meme that I saw a while back where was someone saying, this misleading yet accurate summary of them watching Nemo. So let's see, how could I make a misleading yet accurate summary?
Once upon a time, a guy who really sucked at his job was sent back into the past by a wizard where he fought monsters 20 times his size and survived off of nothing but water and leaves. He was stuck with other people too, who also sucked at their jobs, and they all kept fighting, refusing to help one another, until one of them was taken by one of the monsters so it could feed its spawn.
Moving on. The next book that I read, I technically finished this on January 1st. So some people might be like, well, that's technically a January read, but I don't care. I finished it on January 1st. I was almost finished with it before that, so I am counting it as a December read. And that is Book Eaters by, what's her name again? Sunyi Dean. And this is a horror fantasy, I believe. I definitely felt like it was more fantasy than it was horror, but it had horror elements to it. So Book Eaters, I did give this 4 stars. Again, it's another like mother story. I feel like I've been reading a lot of stories that are about motherhood. In this world, it's like our world, it's based in England, but there are races or species of people that exist kind of underground. No one really knows about them. So the book eaters are one, which they subsist by eating books. It's pretty self-explanatory. And then there are other ones that can be born by the book eaters, and they're called mind eaters. And basically what they do is they eat your mind. They don't really like suck the brain out of you, so it doesn't kill you, but it puts you in a vegetative state. They like absorb who you are. So this main character that we follow, Devon, she is a very tall, very grungy looking woman, and I dare say that was quite appealing. But she is on the run because she's trying to save her son, who is a mind eater. And the mind eaters are not really appreciated by their kind at all. They are mostly they used to be killed and now they're mostly used. And so she's on the run and she's looking for a way to save her son. And this whole story was really just filled with her growing up and getting to where she's at and all the pain and suffering that she has been through. And also kind of the functioning of their society, because they function by having different families and they have issues with fertility. So they're dwindling, and the families have these marriages that are arranged, and also females are very rare. So they get married like multiple times. It's not an actual marriage. It's more like oh, hey, make a baby with this person. Cool, you made a baby. Now move on to the next one. And the women don't get to keep the babies. And Devon went through that. And it's heart-wrenching. It is devastating. The pain. I feel like I read a lot of painful stories in December. I think I might have a problem. But yeah, it was rough. And it also has that narrative of going back in the past and then being in the present. So you did have a lot of filled in moments. My only qualm with it is that at times I feel like some of the past chapters could have been canceled out and we could have gotten like a pretty brief and concisive explanation in the present. Like we didn't need some of the chapters. Shush phone. Another thing too was that sometimes I wasn't really attached to certain things. Like there were some reasoning things that I didn't quite get. I don't know. Just at times I didn't quite enjoy certain characters or character choices and the evolution of certain people. But it's also a fantasy and you can give all kinds of reasonings as to why certain things were done a certain way or choices were made, whatever. Yeah, so... But it's a really good book. I will say, I will pick up more by Sunya Dean because I really did love the writing. And the idea was... I wouldn't say it's really original because I feel like there's gotta be something out there that, I mean, I don't know. I don't feel like I have read anything that's like about people eating books, but it definitely made sense. Like it was an idea that's possibly been out there before that I've heard, and like it was just applied to a story that I wouldn't have thought of otherwise. So for that, it was original. Okay, rated 4 stars, move up 4 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I got Queen Athena. I get to move up to 1. Ooh, wow, I was gonna take the wrong one. 1, 2. Oh, and I got another empty space. Okay, I'm really glad I got that prompt for this book. It's a lot better when I get a prompt like that where I need the physical book, because if I don't have the physical book, it just makes it harder. But I'm glad I got it for this one because this one did have really good quotable moments. And I do highlight so it makes it easier. For here was the thing that no fairy tale would ever admit, but that she understood in that moment. Love was not inherently good. All right, and then the last book is really quite a letdown, I must say, which is An Echo of Things to Come, which I'm pretty sure I'm late returning this to the library. I left the fucking bookmark in there. That's how far I got. I read all this. I read basically half of it. I'm pretty sure it's actually right at 50%, and I DNF'd it. I picked this up like first thing in the month of December because I was like, I'm gonna get it out of the way because it's so freaking thick. And then the more I read it, the more I was like, I'm not interested in anything happening. All the characters are blending into one. I'm not sure what the fuck is going on anymore. And I don't really care that I don't care what's going on. Yeah. So I gave it until the end of the month to see if I would pick it up again, if I was interested in trying again, but I most definitely am not. So I'm officially DNFing this book and thus giving up on the rest of the series. A friend of mine who did read these and recommended that I read these ended up spoiling the ending for me too. And I'm like, well, that is kind of cool, but I definitely don't want to read 800 to 900 pages for each book to get to that ending. Yeah, that's it. And because I DNF'd it, I don't move anymore. So that's the end of the video. Oh my goodness, this took so long. Thank you for hanging out with me. Please let me know what you read in the month of December. Have you read any of these? Are you interested in reading any of these? Let me know. Thank you so much for hanging out, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.